Ever sat in a doctor's office and wondered, what am I legally entitled to know? It's a question that gets right to the heart of that whole doctor-patient relationship. And in Australia, the answer to that question was completely turned on its head by one landmark court case. Seriously, think about it for a second. Let's say you're considering a medical treatment. How much information do you actually need to make a truly informed choice? Is it up to the doctor to decide what you should hear? Or do you have a right to know about every possible outcome, no matter how tiny the chance? Well, turns out, the answer isn't just about having a nice doctor with a good bedside manner. Nope, it's actually a matter of law. And it all comes down to this legal concept called the duty to warn. And believe me, this was a huge shift in thinking. To really get why it's so important today, we've got to jump in the time machine and see how things used to be. For a really long time, the attitude both in society and in the courtroom was basically doctor knows best. Simple as that. The medical profession, while they were the gatekeepers of all the information. But what did that actually look like in practice? So this old standard, it was based on something called the Bollum principle. And what that meant was the test for whether a doctor told you enough was pretty simple. Did they act like other doctors would have? That's it. The medical profession was basically judging itself. The patient's actual needs kind of got left out of the picture. But then one groundbreaking case came along and changed everything. All right, so the year is 1992, and a case comes before the High Court of Australia that is about to completely rewrite the rulebook on this. It's called Rogers versus Whittaker, and honestly, it's a true landmark in Australian law. So in this absolutely historic decision, the highest court in the whole country just throws out the old Bollum principle, at least when it comes to telling patients about risks. They basically said, look, it's not good enough anymore for the medical profession to set its own standards behind closed doors. The law needed a totally new test, one that put the patient right at the center. Okay, so if doctor knows best is out the window, what replaces it? Well, the court introduced a brand new concept, and this became the cornerstone of this new duty to warn. It's the idea of a material risk, and that became the new legal measuring stick. So, what exactly is a material risk? The court's definition is actually beautiful in its simplicity. A risk is material if a patient would probably think it's significant when making their decision. See what happened there? That one little idea completely flips the script. It moves the focus away from what the doctors think is important and puts it squarely on you, the patient, and your decision-making process. And that, of course, is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Significance can be a super personal thing. What's a big deal to me might not be to you. So the High Court, they didn't just stop at the definition. They were smart about it. They laid out a really clear two-part test to figure out what actually qualifies as a material risk a doctor has to tell you about. Okay, so the test has two key parts. First, there's the objective part. You ask, would a reasonable person in the patient's shoes want to know about this risk? Pretty straightforward. But then, and this part is absolutely crucial, there's the subjective part. It asks, does the doctor know, or really should they know, that this specific patient in front of them would care about this risk? Maybe it's because of their job, or a hobby, or even just a question they asked. If the answer to either of those is yes, then bam, the risk is material and the doctor has to tell you about it. So we've got a landmark case, a new legal test. But let's bring it back to right now. What does all this actually mean for you when you're sitting in a consultation room? Well, it all boils down to one fundamental principle: your right to make your own decisions about your own body. And this quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of the whole thing. Patient autonomy. That's the magic phrase here. It's this powerful idea that every single person has the right to be the final decision maker when it comes to their own health. And the court basically stepped in to protect that right. So really, the big takeaway here is about power. This ruling, it gives you, the patient, real power in that consultation room. It means that your personal worries, the specific questions you have, they're now legally relevant. The whole dynamic just shifts away from what a doctor wants to tell you to what you need to know to make your own choice. In short, it empowers you, big time. And this leaves us with a really modern challenge, because while the principle of patient autonomy is now locked in, applying it today brings up all sorts of new questions. We live in an age of information overload, right? You can Google every possible side effect of anything. So how do we find that perfect line between being truly informed and being completely overwhelmed? Finding that balance, well, that's the continuing legacy of the case that changed absolutely everything.